Back to studying. Let's do it. All right, guys. Oh, Alana, do you want me to, is it Alana or Elena?
Ilana.
Alana, perfect.
Okay,
Alana,
so
go ahead.
sorry to everyone who's joining new. My background's a little noisy, but hope everyone can hear me okay. Thank you so much for coming. I'm Alana. I am the event coordinator. I helped set this up with Michael, and then hopefully we can get some of your questions about, being a med student and being a pre-med answered today. But for now, I'm going to pass it on to Lorena and Amanda so they can introduce themselves, and then we'll give it off to Michael.
Cool.
All right, well, hello. I'm Amanda. I'm one of your co-vice presidents / social media people. Yes, that's it.
Hi, my name is Lorena. I'm the other half, Amanda's other half, co-vice president and social media coordinator as well.
Wonderful. Okay, so how do you want to structure this, Alana? Do you want me to introduce myself and then just go down these questions? How do you want to do it?
Yeah, so if you can just introduce yourself a little bit and just talk a little bit about yourself first, and then I can share the questions with Amanda and Lorena, and then we could just for the sake of the video, we can go down and read them off to you, and then you could just answer them. And then at the end, whoever has their own questions, they could just ask them. We'll have like a little more personal Q&A.
Cool, perfect. Let's do that. All right, guys. Mike, you can call me whatever you want. I am a third year here at the UCLA David Geffen School of Medicine, my absolute dream of a medical school, because I was born and raised in Southern California, specifically Chinatown, Los Angeles. If anyone has ever been there, it's a great place. Looked a lot different when I was a little bit younger, but now you might recognize it as Union Station, Olvera Street, the little Chinese Golden Gate Bridge thingy, the public library over there. That's kind of where I'm from. Then for middle school and high school, moved over east to the 626 area, Pasadena, Temple City, Arcadia, kind of where my family is now. So you can imagine I was excited to go to undergrad here at UCLA, and even more excited to stay here for medical school. So I'm a Bruin through and through. My sister is a Bruin as well. She's a third year here at UCLA studying who knows what. She changes every second. I'm sure you guys can understand that. And my brother hopefully will not be a Bruin, but I imagine he may also be a Bruin. He is currently 7 years old. So we have some time to figure that one out. Other than being a medical student, I am a huge believer in kind of chasing your side projects and your passions. And a couple of mine are anime. You can see some posters in the background of some cartoonish figures. Basketball. I'm yawning a lot today because I woke up today at 4 to go to Equinox to play basketball at 5. So it's nearing my bedtime. And mentorship, which is why I'm spending this time with you guys. I think I owe a lot of my personal success to the folks who have guided me in the past, from my elementary school all the way up to my current mentors and my future mentors. I'm very grateful for them, and I'm just trying to pass it on. And with that, in that regard, you can probably, if you're looking for some more advice, you can always find me on the interwebs. There's an array of content I've made alongside Amanda and Lorena a couple of months and years back. But hopefully you'll find something useful. Today, I think my goal is to respect all of your time. We'll try to make it a hard cutoff here at 7 p.m. But for the folks that have shown up, I want to make sure that I answer your questions. Yours takes precedence. And then when you guys are kind of off, I'm happy to also answer some of these questions other people submitted or the board submitted. You guys can watch the replay whenever you're done with finals or anything like that. I think some of these aren't completely imminent. So I want to thank you for coming and listening. If you can turn on your cameras, please do. And then more importantly, if you have a question for your particular situation that you think would be helpful to ask, please do. You can do it anonymously. You can do it on the mic. You can do it on video, whatever it is that makes you feel comfortable. And let's get you guys one step closer to your dreams. All right.
Okay, so I'll read the first question since we are waiting on people to send in their. So I believe the first question is just what made you interested in medicine?
Cool. So while we're kind of waiting, I'm happy to answer these questions, but why don't we just kind of flood? Do we want questions to go to you, Alana, or go to me directly?
Anyone who has questions, you could just send them in the chat. But if you want to remain anonymous or anything, you could just send them directly to Michael, and Michael could just read them out loud first for the sake of the video, and then he can answer them.
Cool. Yeah, let's do that. If you guys have particular questions, just shoot them to me anonymously. Otherwise, I'm going to go down this list of
Or
8.
of course, sorry to interrupt. Or of course, you could just raise your hand and speak out loud.
Or raise your hand. Yeah. Yeah, no worries. Cool. Question number 1, how did you know that you wanted to go into medicine? I think this is a interesting question. It's always one that is asked at every panel. And truthfully, I think if I'm trying to do some psychoanalysis here, that the reason this question is asked so often is that people want to feel like their journey to medicine is the quote unquote right journey to medicine, that they're not making mistakes or doing wrong things, that their journey is not unique in a bad way. I think that is why so many people ask this at every event. It's like, hey, can I find something in their journey that I can resonate with to make me feel assured that, oh, I think I am doing the right things for myself. And if that is true, if my psychoanalysis is true, you don't need to answer this question. However you are getting to medicine is the right way. If you're just curious about me as a person, I'm happy to answer, but that's kind of my preface. I went into college not wanting to go to medicine at all. I wanted to be a mathematician. Math is my favorite subject in high school. That was very logical. I love the way mathematicians walked through problems, and I felt like I was a puzzle solver at heart, and math was a bunch of puzzles. Then I realized you could just be a professor, or you can be an actuary, and that was kind of it. I looked up the stats to be an actuary, and I saw that they were egregiously bad. And so I decided to go into a profession that was egregiously worse, which is medical school. But that only happened after I figured that math wasn't for me. I started majoring in biochem, and upperclassmen told me not to major in biochem because it was too difficult. Then I tried neuroscience, and I was thinking, hey, I'd be a professor. Should I do some research? Should I do medicine? I think the overall theme of my story that you should all take home is that it's not only encouraged to explore your other interests, is absolutely necessary. I think you should really get a good sense of everything that you might have an inkling of interest in before you commit to something that has such a huge opportunity cost. Once you start medical school, it is 4 years of medical school, 3 to 7 years of residency, 1 to 2 years of fellowship, right? The least, it's 7 years. At the most, it is 13 years, right? You can leave at any time, but it's very hard to leave once you start. And so if there are other things that you want to consider, try it for 1 to 2 years. Go do business consulting for 3 years. Go be a computer scientist for 5 years before you actually pull the trigger on a 7 to 13-year journey. That's what I would say. Okay, anyone have any follow-up questions on that before I move on and bore you with the unnecessary details? Bueller. All right, cool. We're speaking into the void tonight, boys. Number 2, what was your experience as in undergrad like? This is a very open-ended question. Is anyone interested in particular portions of my undergrad experience? It's hard to say. Should I talk about my classes? Should I talk about my extracurriculars? Should I talk about the sports? Should I talk about Panda Express? What should I talk about? I ate a lot of Panda Express.
Classes and extracurriculars. Oh, and if we have any freshmen and sophomores, maybe if you know, like had any dorm experience and stuff like that too.
Yeah. So let me know in the chat what you guys are interested in. I'll speak generally until someone wants to kind of delve into the details, but generally, I loved undergrad. I always think that I peak. I thought I peaked in high school, thought I peaked in undergrad. I think I'm peaking in medical school. but I'm realizing every single step of the way that I still have so much room to grow. I was talking to my girlfriend yesterday about this, and it's just like, hey, I'm really excited that there are these things that I still have strong deficits in, and I can see myself getting better at them, and that's very exciting. But overall, as an undergrad, classes were fine. I studied neuroscience as a major, and then I minored in biomedical research. I am lucky to have developed strong study habits from high school. I went to a very competitive high school in the 626, and that instilled in me a series of study habits that I'm really grateful for. And as such, I did very well in neuroscience. I think one lesson that I can share for you all is that there's a common, I'm not going to call it a misconception, but there's a common conception that certain majors are easier than others. And I think that is absolutely true, right? I think that biochemistry is absolutely more difficult than psychobiology, no matter what, right? But I do think that there are relative strengths and weaknesses of the major based upon your interests. For example, you might say that psychobiology is easier than neuroscience, but I find that to be particularly untrue because for me, I could never do psychobiology. I just was not interested in it in the slightest. And even if it has an easier course load, easier curves, I can see myself giving up easier, not wanting to study for it, and doing poorer than I did in neuroscience, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And despite it being a quote unquote harder major with harder curves and more gung-ho pre-meds, I'm confident that I would have done worse in psychobio than in neuro. Okay. Any follow-up questions? Speaking into the void.
If not, then Lorena, do you want to go with the third question?
Yeah, we could go with the third question. So now that you're in medical school, sort of like, what's the best part about it? Have you continued to like continue any of your extracurriculars that like you were involved in for undergrad? Is there anything maybe new that you like got into during medical school, and then just like academic wise in general?
Yeah. The best part of medical school is doing the work of seeing the patients. Last month, I was on general surgery, and I was in at 4:45 every morning, and I left at 6 p.m. every day. And that was for 6 days a week for a whole month. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I loved living at the hospital, eating at the hospital, being with those guys in the trenches, because you feel like you're really making a difference, right? You're seeing 5 people in the morning, you're operating throughout the day, and then at night and in the afternoon, you're checking up on the people again. And it just kind of reminds you of why you study all these things, why the hell you know all these drug side effects and all this pathophysiology, because there are real people with real problems that need your real expertise. That is by and large the most satisfying part of medical school. And when you guys get there, you won't recognize it from the get-go because you'll have been studying for 6 or 7 years, 4 years of undergrad, probably a couple of gap years, 2 years of medical school. You're always studying. But once you start getting in a room with your own patients, operating on real patients, then you begin to realize, hey, this is what the job is really like. No amount of shadowing, no amount of clinical experience can ever prepare you for the time where it's literally up to you to make a decision that will impact someone's health. And when you get it right, there's nothing better than that. I mean, it's the whole reason why we're all in this field. Okay. So if you guys feel despair of how difficult finals week is, how difficult this drudgery and this grind is, just remember that that reality is very, very soon for you. It is very, very soon. Okay. The other great parts about medical school is that you get to manage your own schedule. Like I said, I woke up today at 4 to play basketball at 5 and played from 5 to 7 with some guys at the Equinox. 7 to 8:30, I studied for my shelf exam tomorrow. And then 8:30 to 9, I pre-rounded on my own patients. And then 9 to 5, I was at neurology. 1 to 5, I had clinic. 9 to 1, I had inpatient rounds. You have a manageable schedule, and you feel like every minute of your day, you're doing something meaningful. And I feel like when I was, even as an MS1 or MS2, but especially in undergrad, there were pockets of time where I felt like my life didn't really have any meaning. I was just kind of scrolling through social media or kind of getting lost in YouTube rabbit holes. And sometimes you need that to relax and decompress. But I've learned that I actually don't need that if my schedule is packed with things that are really meaningful to me. And I have felt that way in my third year of medical school, where it's like back to back to back. It's very fun things, very energizing things. I'm just starting to feel like I'm living my life in its entirety. And there are not kind of pockets of time that I am throwing away. So that's great. Okay. I have an anonymous question. Let's read this. All right. Hey, Mike, I am currently in my gap year. Great. Having difficulty studying for the MCAT. I have all the resources, done some content review. I feel very intimidated by the MCAT, and I kind of feel like I know I won't get a high score, especially with taking OChem physics online, not fully grasping the subjects. Do you have any advice on how to go about this? Thank you so much. All right. Who is going to take the MCAT in the next 6 months? Can I get a raise of hands? I guess if I get one hand, then it exposes my friend. So let's, okay. All right, well, great for those who took the MCAT. I guess I'm gonna speak to the one person who's about to take it. What I will say is that this is a conversation that can last days, if not weeks, but 10,000 foot view, you're a pretty smart person, right? If you feel like there's this quote that I love and I've stood by because it really forces me to face my reality. And I think it's by Ford. I think it's by Ford, of Ford Motors. And it's something like, if you think you can do it, or you think you cannot do it, or something like this, you are right both ways, right? And I know it's like this heebie-jeebie woo-woo stuff that kind of feels fake and not really helpful, but I stand by it pretty adamantly. If you have not started to really get in the trenches and start studying from the get-go, and from the get-go, you feel very much like you won't get a high score, you're going to behave in a way that reinforces those behaviors, right? If you feel like you're not a person, okay, I got another question. If you feel like you're not a person who's capable of getting a good score, then maybe you're going to stop studying earlier. Or maybe when you get a low score, you're going to tell yourself in your mind, hey, yeah, I knew it. I'm right. I knew I wasn't capable of a high score, right? So without getting into all the details of, hey, you should say this way, hey, that way, I think the best thing I can leave you with is kind of break down your assumptions, right? This exam is taken by like 50,000 people every single year. And there is no reason why you cannot be one person in that higher upper echelon. If you understand the fundamentals of studying appropriately, and all of that is widely available on the internet, if you want some structured way of going about it, I just always suggest people watch Ali Abdal's Skillshare class, completely free. Great resource that you can kill in half an afternoon of winter break. If you really internalize those things and then really start to put in the time, there's just absolutely no reason you cannot learn this material, right? You do not have a personal ceiling. The MCAT is not your personal ceiling. Step 1 is not your personal ceiling. And the boards later in your life are not your personal ceiling. It's really about how you see yourself, whether you have the time to put in the work, and then if you're putting in the work correctly. So yeah, I understand that you took OChem and physics online and it wasn't the most optimal setting, but there are enough resources in books and in practice questions that you can make up for that deficit. Again, it comes down to 3 things. Do you believe you can do it? 1, Do you have the time to do it, or do you make the time to do it? 2, and 3, are you doing it the right way, right? Are you studying the right way? If you dial in those 3 things, just don't worry about anything else. Like, don't worry about, hey, I don't have all the Princeton Review practice tests, or hey, I didn't sign up for Kaplan testing. There's no excuse. In the books, in the practice questions the AMC releases, that's literally all you need to get a perfect score, truthfully. It's your understanding of those 3 levers that are going to change how you score. That's what I would say. Cool. Happy to answer any follow-up questions as well. Anonymous from someone else. Hey, I have a question. I was wondering, how did they manage school and extracurriculars, or what extracurriculars did they participate in undergrad? Oh, I love this question because it always lets me go down like memory lane here. Let's go down memory lane. Hopefully I don't expose myself. But I'm going to take a look at, I don't know, let's look at my junior year. And we can see how I made time for all the things that I did. Let me find a good week here. Okay, so this looks like it's the summer. This doesn't look like it's that helpful there. All right, let's just pick a random week. Okay, here we go. Can we see my, oh, can someone let me share my screen? Police.
Yeah, I'll just make you co-host, and that should be easier. Oh, perfect. Okay, you got it.
All right, you guys can see this? Yes?
Yes. Yes.
Great. Okay, this is just a random week. Let's see if this is a good week to do it. Yeah, let's just do this. It's a good one. Yeah, these are good 2 weeks. Okay, so this is like week 3, winter quarter of my junior year, right? So first, I don't know why there's a question mark here, but I think that's really funny as well. Like, should I hoop? I don't know. But it looks like I had a really late start to this day. I started at 10:30, so I don't know what I was doing in the morning. But 10:30, I was working with some mice in my research lab. At 11:30, I was also working with the mice and doing some imaging. So we looked at the somatosensory cortices of mice who have received strokes. And to do that, we need a fancy microscope. And I was on the fancy microscope. Pick up Liz Roth Johnson's signed paper. Not sure what that is. That's probably an English class that I was in. And there's probably some paper that I needed to review, and I went to go pick it up. Great. Then I had my psych course, 2 psych courses. And then I had a staff meeting at night, 8 to 10 for Vietnamese community health. You can see, I mean, a lot of time here, right? If I woke up at 7 or 6, there's 4 hours in the morning here. There's 5 to 8, 3 hours here to eat, shower, stretch, whatever you need to do, talk to your girlfriend, whatever it is, right? Talk to your parents. Tuesday, in the mouse lab again in the morning, Spanish. I had a phone call with one of my research PIs, my neuroscience course. This was my part-time job as a PLF. I taught molecular biology. You guys know it as LS7A. And then I also had a review session. I don't know if I was leading the review session or I was going to the review session, but it's one of those 2. Then we had a general meeting that I led, and then we had an internship right after that too. Again, like 7, 8, yeah, busy day. But if I wake up at 7, if I want to sleep 8 hours, then I should go to sleep around 11, and I still have 3 hours at night to, again, eat, shower, chill. It's fine, right? I like doing some of these things as well. And you can see on Wednesday, very, very free day. I have some behavior training, some training to access the mice, stuff like this. Class, ELIF. I don't remember who ELIF is. There's a contract, mice behavior. You can see that this is just kind of really all class in my job. And I have a lot of pockets of time for extracurriculars. Here's my IM team that I play every Thursday, 9 to 10 p.m. Friday, I was off completely, right? So, and then on Saturday, I was at Vietnamese Community Health Project at Wild Arlington. And then we also had a health site that I went to that Sunday too. And then this week, again, it's kind of a lot of similar things. I just kind of put the extracurriculars where I can. I have a brainstorm meeting here, a meeting with Cecilia here, a Spanish meeting here, a PLF meeting at Wolfgang Puck here. This is when I presented on how to interview to some of the undergrads This is our midterm review session that I held for our PLFs. This was a phone call with Richard, who is now an orthopedic surgeon. Went to UCLA medical school and now is a UCLA orthopedic resident. He's still my mentor to this day. And then I had kind of like a award ceremony for some community health things that I'm doing. And then Friday, you can see I'm adding a lot of research stuff, whatever. Okay. There's also here a phone interview with a orthopedic surgery internship that I was interested in. Essentially, that is literally how you manage it. You have, I think if we look at our calendars, I think if we don't have calendars that dictate how we spend our time, often we feel like we don't have a lot of time. But the truth is, when you look at these things, you have plenty of time. A lot of it just kind of slips through your fingers, right? Even this is not the most optimized calendar by any means. There are 3, 4, 5-hour blocks here multiple times a week that I can fill with exercise, calling my mom, things like this. So I would say if you're having trouble managing school and your extracurriculars, take a look at your calendar and actually put down how you're spending your time. I think you will be very surprised to see that you have large blocks of time that you're not using probably the way that you want to. Doesn't mean you have to be productive. Doesn't mean every single waking hour, 16 hours, you have to be in research or in class or in an extracurricular. But I imagine there are things that you are doing now that you don't love, that you would love to replace with something that you do love. And I'll let you kind of answer that for yourself. Okay. Another anonymous question. Hey, had a question about whether more students are taking a 5th year in medical school to do research for competitive residency positions. Yeah, more and more people are doing that. We don't really quite call it a 5th year. We just call it a gap year as well. And often people do it between their 3rd and 4th years of medical school. So I am considering one as we speak, because I plan to apply to orthopedic residency next or eventually in my career. And I'm not quite sure how competitive I am right now, kind of trying to figure that out, but there's a chance that I do take a research year myself. Okay. Hey, I have a question. What are some extracurriculars or volunteering opportunities you engaged in that exemplified your interest? Wonderful question. Gives me a chance to show you my resume. Let's see. Hopefully this is helpful. All right, this is my application to medical school. Let's see what 15 things that I chose here. Okay, so here are the literal 15 things that I put. You guys can see my screen? Yeah, okay, perfect. Literal 15 things that I put on my medical school application. All right, number 1, I got a leadership and service award. Okay, doesn't really count. I got a scholarship for research. Okay, here's extracurricular number 1. I was the molecular biology PLF, and I was eventually the life sciences supervisor. It has this is kind of twofold, but it represents my passions both for mentorship and for didactics, especially. So teaching and mentorship both kind of wrapped into this, all with the underlying theme of serving underserved populations, because this is a population that I came from and I'm very passionate about. Number 2, I was a youth basketball coach. While studying for the MCAT, I coached the Hoopers, I named them. Everyone's name was like the Lakers, the Celtics, or the Clippers, and I didn't get the memo, and I called my team the Hoopers, but we won the championship, so it's okay. But anyway, 33 hours in the course of, I think, a 12-week or 13-week season. I came out. We had these 2-hour practices, and we had a game every week as well for another hour. And that was just wonderful. Showed my interests in basketball, of course, and my interest in mentorship, because I find that teaching the youth through the game of sport is a good way to transfer some very important lessons as they transcend into their teenage years. Number 3, health services research assistant. So published a couple papers in the health services field with Cedars-Sinai. Just kind of some research. Intramural sports student rep official. This showed my interest again for basketball. I'm sure you guys can tell that I'm a big basketball guy by now. And also it just gave me an opportunity to learn kind of customer service and soft skills, because basketball, you may think, is a game of 5-on-5. In fact, it's not. It's a game of 10-on-2. It's always the 10 players on the court versus the 2 referees, especially when you are refereeing intramural basketball and there's a bunch of testosterone on the court and no one loves the referee. That taught me a lot about how to kind of manage conflict resolution. And it was something I love talking about. So even though I only spent 107 hours here over the course of 3 years, it is something that really I wanted to leave on my application. Health coach for my life. Essentially, this is a program where I helped folks who have issues with chronic diseases driven by lifestyle choices, basically people who are having trouble exercising, eating healthy, making strong lifestyle decisions for themselves. I helped coach them lose weight. And through this experience, I learned a lot about behavior change and how to encourage people to make sustainable changes for their life. Very strong clinical experience, as you may imagine. Those skills are very translatable to the clinic today. This is my stroke recovery research, very basic sciencey. This was my biomedical research minor mentorship program director. So I paired a lot of upperclassmen who were experienced with research with underclassmen who are in research but wanted a better sense of how to support their labs and their PIs. Again, showing my avid passion for mentorship in all forms. Got some shadowing experience. This is brain sport. It's a combination of neuroscience and sports. Again, you guys are kind of seeing this recurring theme of basketball, sports, and then some other interests intertwined, whether it's mentorship, whether it's didactics. I'm kind of finding things that are in the middle of those two. Some more shadowing, clinical medical assistant. I was helping translate for some Vietnamese patients back in the community, college-bound program. So if you guys are familiar with the Boys and Girls Club, I spent a lot of time with the Boys and Girls Club here at Santa Monica. Again, underserved populations, mentorship, things of this sort. And you guys, look, it seems like a lot, but look at this. This is 45 hours, right? I developed my curriculum. I got in, I did my job, and then I got out. If I really loved it, I would have stayed. But I feel like I made the impact that I wanted to. And then if it wasn't completely for me, I'm happy to take the lessons that I learned and move on to my next project, right? You don't have to stay for 500 hours for everything, especially if you don't love it. This is something that I loved, right? So this is 400, 500 hours over the course of 4 years. Vietnamese Community Health, we put on some health fairs every quarter for 300 plus Vietnamese and Hispanic immigrants. Again, showing that the underserved immigrant population, AAPI, Hispanic populations as well, are something that are really important to me. They remind me of the people who I grew up with in Chinatown, huge Hispanic population, and then my own family who raised me from when I was young. And then my favorite one, the freaking Care Extender program. I wish I didn't put this on here, but I felt pressure to because hospital volunteering, you know. Okay. Anyway, hopefully that helps. Overall, as a framework, those are all the details, but I think the most important thing is to understand a framework. The framework is you must have the fundamentals. You must be able to say that you have clinical experience, you have some shadowing, you have strong or strong enough academics. You must have fundamentals, but fundamentals do not get you into medical school. Fundamentals open the door to medical school. And once the door is open, you have to figure out a way to earn your seat, right? And in order to keep a seat, you have to stand out in some way, whether that's through your extracurricular activities or through your letters of recommendation or through your scores. One part of your application, hopefully many parts of your application, have to be so excellent or so clear or have a narrative so compelling that a medical school says, hey, this person is going to contribute this to society. I want that person in my school. For me, it was my relentless pursuit of supporting immigrant populations, as well as my multifaceted desire to engage in mentorship in a variety of contexts that I think eventually earned me a seat here at UCLA. Okay, hopefully that helps. Please, again, leave me any follow-up questions that you have. Okay, here's a follow-up question. I have a calendar filled with slots of work, but for me, it's hard sticking to it. What advice do you have for that? Oh, this is wonderful. There is a person that I think everyone should listen to, especially students, um, in your kind of stage. I don't know if folks are listening to podcasts, but if you are, there's a person that I recommend. His name is Cal, C-A-L, California, Cal Newport. And he is a computer science professor at Georgetown, I believe, that is really big in this like time management productivity space, but he does it in a way that I feel is very non-judgmental. And I'll give you kind of his answer. If you have a calendar filled with slots of work and it's hard sticking to it, the reason is you're a very smart person. And so when you put a calendar that is filled with work for 16 hours straight, your brain will say, there is absolutely no way I'm doing this. It's impossible for me to work 16 hours. That's why you're having a hard time sticking to it. You're being unreasonable, right? And Cal Newport says you have to start slow. If you do not schedule your time at all, there's absolutely no reason you should be scheduling every single minute of your day, right? You can start with scheduling 1 hour outside of your or you can just start with scheduling your mandatory commitments because you already do that, right? It's just now putting into a calendar. Next week, you can put 1 hour outside of your mandatory commitments that you really want to commit to, and you stick to that no matter what. And then slowly you can recognize, hey, I think 1 hour was not enough time for me to do my Launchpad assignment. Perhaps next time when I budget time for Launchpad, I will budget an hour and a half. Or, hey, I have realized that perhaps I am not going to go lift at 3:30 a.m. Maybe I should not do that. So I would say the best thing for me when it comes to scheduling is imagine like you are scheduling for your girlfriend, your boyfriend, a loved one, your best friend. Schedule it for a friend. Don't schedule that your time for yourself, because when you schedule for yourself, all of a sudden you have these unrealistic expectations, right? The mindset you should get in is, if I were scheduling for my girlfriend, how would I schedule her day? And then you would put some relaxation blocks. You wouldn't push yourself to do so much. And I find that to be a very effective way to kind of get out of your own head. All right. Next question. Would you recommend taking a prep course for the MCAT? Would you say it's worth the price? Okay, I took a prep course. Its name is the Princeton Review. It's no secret. I didn't love it. It's because I feel like I have the structure and understanding of my own time to be able to keep myself on pace for a 12-week period. Some people don't. And that's okay, because that doesn't have to be your strength. You might be strong in other things. If you feel like you need structure, a prep course is good because it provides structure. Would you say it's worth the price? This is something that I talked about on my Instagram today, and it's very kind of top of mind. Worth the price is always a difficult question to answer because worth implies an understanding of value, right? And so if you pay for something and you deem it to be worthwhile, you are saying, what I got from this is more valuable than the amounts that I paid. Okay. And so using that framework, it is impossible for me to tell you if it is worth the price, because even though the price that we pay is the same, the value that we get from it is different. So again, it goes back to how do you value the things that an MCAT program will give you? Well, it'll give you a structure. It'll give you access to a couple of instructors. It'll give you access to these books. And how much do you value that, right? Another thing to consider that I didn't think would be a big deal, but I felt was an actual real force when I was doing it, is that when you pay for something, you start to really pay attention. So if you are someone who has trouble with urgency and taking things very seriously, an easy way to do that is to pay $5,000 for it. If you pay $5,000 for it, you start to be like, shit, like I have to pay attention, because that's a huge amount of money. I'm not saying that you should, but I'm saying that it is an effect that a lot of people don't talk about that I felt really strongly when I started preparing for my MCAT. I was like, hey, I'm just gonna go do this program. Other people are doing it, so I should do it. And then I dropped 5K. A lot of it was my PLF money, and I was like, oh, I have no money left. I better do a good job. And I took that very seriously. But if you don't have that problem, then maybe you don't value that part of it. So I would say understand what a program gives you. Don't be suckered into feeling that you need a program. No one needs a program. But for some people, the value of that structure and the access to the instructors is worth more than $5,000. For someone like me, that wasn't worth $5,000. But perhaps the urgency that I got was worth $5,000. So yeses and nos. Next question. This was my first quarter as a transfer to UCLA. Welcome to the Bruin family, my friend. And I did not do as well as I hoped to. Okay. I did not come in with strong study skills like you did. Can you please share some of your study skills? Okay. This is going to be very difficult for me to do succinctly, and I'm going to redirect all of your attention to Ali Abdal. Let's see. Ali Abdal, just Google Ali Abdal Skillshare, and then it's like how to study or something like that. If you Google those keywords and then you make a free Skillshare account, you can, so I think you have to put in your credit card, but then just set a reminder on your phone for 10 days because the trial is like 14 days long, and cancel it at 10 days. That will give you full access to that program. That is a science-backed course that goes into the most effective ways of studying. You don't need any hacks. You don't need any tricks. You need science. And Ali Abdal does a very good job of breaking down the science of studying in that course, and I will redirect you there. I think he does it way better than I can impromptu on a Thursday in December. Okay. Looks like we are running out of these anonymous questions. Gosh darn it. So we'll go back to the list. Or why don't we do this? I can read these questions, and if folks are interested in it, they can let me know if they want to hear my answer to it. I don't want to give answers to questions that you guys are not interested in at this time. I don't think it's a good use of your time. I remember when I was sitting in your shoes and I was sick and tired of hearing some of the things that I already knew. So in respect of you, I'll read these questions. Let me know if there are things that you want to hear about. But otherwise, happy to just cut it short and let you guys go on your merry way this Thursday night. I know probably not a lot of us are going partying this Thursday, but partying with the books is fine. All right. Number 4, what do you have any career paths you're leaning towards? If so, what are they? Number 5, what advice do you have for other pre-meds? That is a very hard question. Number 6, what is an MCAT study tip you can give students? Okay, kind of talked about that. 7, what's the most rewarding part of studying medicine? Great, already talked about that. And 8, what do you like to do for fun? Great, already talked about that. So we're kind of essentially in, do you have any career? I mean, I already tell you a career path I'm leaning towards. I'm leaning towards orthopedic surgery. And 5, what advice do you have for other pre-meds? This is your opportunity to help me get more specific. So if there are anything that you are wondering about in particular, do let me know. Okay, the anonymous questions are flying in. What are your tips on how to start studying for the MCAT? Like, where should you start if you're thinking about starting studying now? Okay, the first thing you should do is to figure out what the optimal time for you to study is. I always recommend folks have 3 months full time of studying. That I have found to be the most effective way to kind of knock out the MCAT, because the MCAT is not like your school. And if you do school and the MCAT at the same time, it can kind of mess your brain up about how to specifically study for each exam. An exam for your biochem course 153A is very different from the biochem section on the MCAT. Where should you start? Okay, you should start with figuring out what are the resources that you're going to use, and then you should follow that up with what your overall study schedule is going to be. I would probably direct you I don't think I have any content on the MCAT. It's kind of in the back burner. So I would say the best places on the internet to look for that include the MCAT subreddit on reddit.com/r/MCAT. You'll find a bunch of great resources there to start. Again, kind of hard for me to get in the weeds with you because these are very overarching questions, but I'm hoping that's a good start. Hi, I had a question about your experience with bureaucracy in medicine, how that impacts the practices of doctors. I love the question. I think it is beyond all of our times, especially if you're a little bit younger in your journey, but I'm happy to answer. Bureaucracy is a big word that has a lot of kind of subdividing branches. Are you talking about tax bureaucracy? Are you talking about hierarchical bureaucracy? There's just kind of a lot of red tape all around medicine. But I'll say that some people will call it red tape and other people will just call it guidelines. And that kind of limits the amount of creativity physicians can have. But truthfully, if that is something you're concerned by, I would get a little bit more specific or kind of share why you're concerned by that. And I'm happy to address that specific situation, but I'm not at a point where I can confidently say doctors love their jobs, but the bureaucracy prevents them from doing it. I don't think any statement like that is quite appropriate. All right, how many hours should you study a day? This is a great question. You should study enough to get the grades that you need. So if I said the answer 17, or if I said the answer 21, or I mean, this is a day. So if I said the answer 2 versus the answer 5, I'm not quite confident it would be actionable for you. It might be something that you say, hey, I study 2 hours a day, I can stop now, which I don't think is very useful because some people need to study more for certain subjects and some people need to study less. The answer is you need to study for however much you feel you need to earn the grades that you want and no more, right? If you're a high achieving student with a 3.95 GPA, I encourage you to study less because you need to use that time for other things. Maybe you need to exercise. Maybe you need to call your parents. Maybe you need to work on your extracurriculars. Maybe you need to build relationships with your letter writers, right? Understand the principle of marginal benefit, which basically means if you put in some amount of work, how much benefit are you going to get? And for someone with a 3.95 GPA, an extra hour of studying is going to give you a very low benefit. Whereas that person in that same shoes who has 0 hours of shadowing, 1 hour of shadowing is huge for you as opposed to 1 hour of studying. So kind of make that cost benefit decision for yourself. Next question. How do you know what activities will help you stand out for med school apps? The activities that will help you stand out for med school apps, again, kind of go into 2 buckets. One, the fundamentals. You need the fundamentals. Clinical experience, plus or minus kind of research. I always encourage it because it's a unique experience that I think many physicians benefit from. You need some shadowing, you need some volunteerism, kind of these things that are soft skills related to medicine, things that you can think of off the top of your head. But in order to stand out, you need to understand what's important to you. You are not going to stand out if you just do the fundamentals. And a lot of people don't even have the fundamentals. Okay. But once you have the fundamentals, figure out, hey, what do I care about? And those things that you care about, you should go really, really deep in because you don't want to compete with your grades. A lot of people here in this call, I imagine that there's no one in this call that has a 4.0 GPA and a 528 MCAT. I imagine that you cannot compete on that ground because there are I think every year there's upwards of thousands of pre-meds that have a 4.0 GPA, 528 MCAT. So I don't know about you, but I could not compete in that category. But the thing that I can compete in is my category, just who I am and what I'm interested in. I create a category of one. And when you are in a category of one, there is no competition. It is you or not you, right? So figure out what you care about. For me, it was basketball. It was mentorship. It was underserved populations. It was Vietnamese and Hispanic immigrants. It was behavior change, right? Just kind of these themes that you want to spend a lot of time figuring out, and then attack those themes from a variety of ways, right? I coached youth basketball. I did a biomedical research mentorship program. I was a PLF life sciences supervisor when I was mentoring other PLFs. As a PLF, I mentored my peers, right? That is important to me, so I do it. Here's another example. There is one person that I know loves the Armenian community and their associated immigrants, and she loves writing. And so how does she combine the two? Well, there's a local Armenian newspaper and they don't have a health column. So she proposed a health column, and every week or 2 weeks, I forget how frequent it is, she writes this little article that's something like, hey, do you know Armenian dish? They know the classic Armenian dish because they are all very friendly Armenian immigrants to understand. And that is a great way to stand out because, again, this is a category of one. No one else is contributing to a newspaper supporting the Armenian community like this. Uh-oh, I think I've lost you. Hello?
It was freezing a little bit, but I think you're back. I hope.
Okay, hopefully that helps. All right, last call, my friends. Last call. It's been a pleasure. This is early. I know you guys are busy for finals week. I just wanted to drop by and say hi. I hope that this was helpful, and in the future, I plan to do more of these so when more of your friends are available to know me and me to get you to know you guys. So let's do the last batch of questions here. Please submit your last ones, and then we'll all head out at a hard cutoff at 7 as promised. Question on how to get a research position. I'm a transfer student, so it feels harder as I am in third year and COVID limited my in-person research experience. Yeah, it's difficult for everyone to get a research experience right now. A lot of it is a numbers game, but a lot of it is also a quality game. Some is quantity, some is quality, right? So quantity wise, you're probably not reaching out to enough research positions. I know you have a dream to do Alzheimer's research in mice, but there's only maybe 10 elite labs in the country that do that research. And one of them is at UCLA. So if you don't get a position there, I think it safely is not your fault. There's just the opportunity, the door is just not open right now. So be open. Be open in what you want to do, be open with who you want to work with what skills you want to learn, because eventually research, you just really want to learn how to engage in the scientific method, right? It sounds so cheesy. And remember studying it in high school, but when you're doing research, it is the crux of everything that you're doing, and you need to understand the in and out. So I would just recommend you reach out more. Quantity, reach out constantly, reach out more, keep looking. 100 emails is not enough, right? Keep going. And then quality, make sure that the emails that you're send them at a time that you imagine people will be reading emails. Don't send them at 2 a.m. on a Saturday, right? In the body of the email, share a little bit about who you are, and then most importantly, share about what you're interested about them, right? You probably don't have anything to offer them, right? Other than your labor. And if you say, hey, I'm willing to do my indentured servitude labor to you, it probably is not the most appealing thing to say, but you at least can give them your undivided passion and interest, right? A lot of these professors just love mentoring students, just like I do. And the students that I love to mentor are the people with their cameras on, who are engaging, right? Who are asking questions on the microphone, who are showing that they actually care, right? If you show that you actually care in your email, you've read their papers, you have a question that is like, that shows that, hey, you know a little bit about what's going on. You don't have to ask an expert question, but you should show that you've done your work. You should show that you care, that you're engaged. That respect goes a long way. And it's the same here, right? If you're showing up to these calls and you're not interacting with your professor or your TA or me, no hard feelings from me. I could care less, truthfully. But if you do want to be that person who's on the video, on the microphone, who decided to block off a whole hour for this Q&A and not do anything with your phone or with your friends or be in a public area, that respect goes a long, long way. And if you need something from me in the future, I am very inclined to be like, hey, that's the person who cared, right? That's 100% why I'm in medical school, because I spent a lot of time giving people the respect that they deserve. And I think that's kind of a lost art sometimes. Okay. Can we email you with questions that we might have afterwards? Is psychology research? Yeah, psychology research is okay, even if you don't want to go into psychiatry. Again, you just want to really understand the scientific method. You want to be a part of a team. You want to contribute to something bigger than you. You want to make some impact. That's kind of the things that people are looking for. Yeah, you can Instagram me or messenger me. Here's my Instagram. You can find as my current name. I trust that you guys are savvy enough to figure that out. And then my messenger, I think, is this. Yeah, this is my messenger. Feel free to just direct message me. Sometimes I don't get to email very quickly. Okay. How do you go about getting clinical experience? When is a good time trying to okay. You can start getting clinical experience as soon as possible. How do you go about getting it? You look for every opportunity that you can, right? Getting clinical experience is just any experience where you're interacting with a patient, right? So that means helping them lose weight. That means doing clinical research. That means being in a clinic. That means translating for patients, right? Figure out all these different types. That means scribing. That means being an EMT. There are plenty of different experiences. I mean, that's just the whole field of healthcare, right? You can be involved as a physical therapist assistant. You can be involved in hospice care. You can go to a SNF and volunteer your time. You can go to a geriatric home and do some activities with the patients and folks there, right? Clinical experience is hard to get, and I understand that, but I think a lot of people aren't prioritizing it enough. If you really want clinical experience, and you should, because this is something you're trying to really explore as a career, then go look for all the places where patients live. And I've just named literally 8 of them, right? Hospice care, SNFs, geriatric homes, hospitals, outpatient clinics, community health fairs, federally qualified health centers, just anywhere where there's a patient. Clinical research, right? Plenty. Thank you, Lorena. She makes great points here, why you care about it, why it's interesting, and what you can offer them. Again, you probably can't offer them much unless you have some skills in the back, but I promise you the lost art of respect is something that mentors in today's day and age look for. If they get 10 emails and one is more that showed more intent, showed more respect, is quote unquote a try hard, whatever it is that you guys use to describe that type of behavior, it means a lot for people to be engaged, because it doesn't feel like they're wasting their time, right? That they volunteer their time, people have their cameras on, people are sending emails that are very educated and well-researched in advance. They've kind of thought to leave their calendar or leave their availability and their phone number in case the PI wants to call them whenever the PI is free. Maybe they dropped by the PI's office and knocked to see if they were available, right? Doing these things just really helps you stand out, because it shows that you give a shit. All right, 7:02. I went over. Looks like there's no other questions. Happy to have chatted with some of these folks. Hopefully you guys got some value some of your questions answered today. My messenger is available there. My Instagram is available here. Feel free to message me there. You volunteered at a family clinic, COVID screening for 100 hours, constantly interacting with patients. Could this be clinical experience? Of course it could be clinical experience. Thank you for offering your volunteerism. That is a very important cause. And I'm happy that you supported the vaccination of many, many people in those 100 hours. 100%. Okay, great job, Jenny. We should all aspire to be Jenny and Alana and Amanda and Lorena and the rest of you guys here today. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy party Thursday night lights. I'll see you guys probably in the new year. Just wanted to say hello for this brief period, but let me know if you guys need any help. You can reach me through messages, and I will see you guys all soon. Have a great night.
Thank you so much, Michael.
Of course. Later, guys. Have a great night.
Bye.
Thank you.
And thank you to